All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Word with Ty Brownlow. I am your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless, no story is worthless. Today, ladies and gentlemen, do I have a very, very special treat for you. Man, today, we're talking about matters of the heart. I don't understand what you mean, Ty. Well, let me just break it down for you real quick. There are some out here, and I know people who may come from a less fortunate background or what have you, but we're going to look beyond that. And there are people, young youth, who are coming through the foster systems, adoption systems, and some of them, probably won't get a chance to have their story told. But today, ladies and gentlemen, my very, very, very special guest went through those same circumstances. Man, and it's giving back. So we're going to talk about that and everything else they have going on. Joining me all the way from the East Coast now, Boston, Chowder, down by the harbor. Please put your hands together for Robert Ferraro.
Thank you, Ty. I know for me, it's a privilege to be here. I love what you do, and I love to be a part of it, and I thank you for having me, for real.
Hey, look, the pleasure is all mine, and it's twofold. Man, like, my brother in media, we're about to get it, started, okay?
Let's do it.
Man, so one of the first things I talked about, man, in case you all, didn't catch it, Mr. Robert Ferraro is a advocate for adopted and foster children and adults as well. My first question to you would be, what connection what connection does this have to you personally, being adopted and foster children as well?
Well, Ty, I think the thing is like sometimes things that are obvious. You can say, oh, I'm tall. I'm not, but so other people can say, hey, I'm tall, right? Or in a more serious way, they could say, I'm African American, or I have trouble reading, or something like that. You could say anything that you feel defines you or other people define you with. When you're adopted, it's an invisible thing because there's nothing on you that says you're adopted. So if you don't bring it out, very rarely are people going to bring it out. It happens, but not very often. So then you're taught to not internalize things. You're taught to move forward. Don't be a winner. Go ahead. Put your head down. Don't let things in the past bother you. You need to conquer that. You need to go ahead. Well, if you spend a lifetime doing that, you might forget that this thing happened to you. And it happens to you because you had no control over it. And when you get to be an old guy, if you're slow like me and it takes you a while to come around, I'm 50, and all of a sudden you say, oh yeah, you remember that thing? Well, that thing affected me greatly. It took me into my 20s to learn about it, and then I kind of put it back on the shelf, and then as I got older again, I said, you know what? There is nothing about me, nothing that doesn't trace back to the fact that I am adopted. Almost nothing in my personality. If you like something about me, I could almost draw the line right to the fact that I'm adopted. And if you don't like something about me, I could draw a line right to the fact that I am adopted. It is the largest guiding factor of my life. So once I understood that, and I understood that I'm older now, and I'm entering into the last third of my life or so, I'm saying to myself, well, how could I be of help? And I think the first thing was to say, I want to be of help. And now I spend time trying to decide how to be of help. And I think I'm working through that right now. But I'm open for business when it comes to helping adopted people and foster people emotionally, psychologically, or any other way that I can. And that's what I'm about now.
Okay. All right. Now, to segue into the next topic, first, just let me say, I love that because you make a great point, and when you come through certain systems, there's nothing that says, hey, I'm adopted, or hey, I'm a foster kid. There's like, as you said, there are like other attributes that you have. Hey, I'm tall. Hey, I'm African American. Hey, I have hair. Hey, I have a beard. Hey, but these are attributes that you can see, point to, and pick out and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is this is that, this is this is that. But there is nothing that, can tell you, like, if a person comes from a certain type of background, or, if a person came through this type of system versus this type of system. And as you said, that can be the invisible mark. And you really hit on something, that sometimes as a society, let's just keep it real. As a society will tell us at times, hey, you know what? You went through this. Get over it. You know what I'm saying? Keep pushing. You know what I'm saying? Don't even worry about it. Don't let that hold you back. And, I'm just going to say it. Sometimes they're wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do need to worry about it. Sometimes you do need to process it and put it in, put it directly in front of you. Because pretty much as you said, if you don't, then you continue to go through life. You continue to, strive and do all these things. But internally, something's missing.
Yeah.
Like it's that culture piece that's almost missing. Like, okay, are you really a work of art? Well, or are you just really missing something? You know what I'm saying? Like, you might be missing something.
That's true. And you know what? I think to your point, those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Saying, hey, something really bad happened to me and it affected me greatly and it's still affecting me. But, oh, by the way, I'll be up tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning trying to move ahead. Those things can exist at the same time. And I think people feel like, oh, you have a victim mentality. No. I'm objective. I'm practical. This happened to me, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to just put my head down and go. I think one of the things for me, Ty, that gave me like the feeling that I wasn't looking for excuses and that I was actually a victim of something is that I found I didn't find out about the effect my adoption had on me until like I was 26 or 27 when I read books, and these books read like they were my biography. They read like someone was spying in the bushes and around every tree, watching my life, and filed a report. These were just books written in general about adopted people, and I fit every nook and cranny. And I said, oh, all right. See, I was able to look back. It wasn't like I said, oh, I'm adopted, and then went and made a bunch of mistakes in the name of being adopted. I made the mistakes and then found out what a lot of the source for those mistakes was. It's different, a little different.
There it is. Okay, so you saying that, like, hey, I found out what the source was, and dealing with that, like making sense of that, dissecting that, breaking that down, not letting it consume you now, but basically understanding. And I think sometimes when we understand our origins and the culture that we come from, it like going further or going forward in life, we best know how to deal with certain things because we know from where we came. And, we know the situations that we, were, born into, or, we pretty much overcame as, ourselves.
Right.
But I know you are the founder and senior writer now, okay, of The Giving Arts. And there's also thegivingarts.com. And before we talk about that, you wrote an essay, okay? And I had time to read the essay, and yeah, like, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna tell you right now, thegivingarts.com, there's an essay on there called "My Love is Stronger Than Your Disregard." Can you talk to us a little bit about this essay?
So I think a lot of people, on the internet and social media like to write about themselves, right? And sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's not.
Right.
And I think there's a difference between maybe wanting to share something about yourself in a generous way and maybe wanting to just say, hey, look at me, in a more of a myopic type of place, and sometimes narcissistic type of place. I've been guilty of both. But later in life, right? Yeah. But later in life, I have been less guilty of the former. I've tried to, when I say something, I try to let other people see in it themselves, at least, if I'm going to almost like it's a deal. Hey, I'm going to tell you something, Ty, about myself. It's going to take about 10 minutes, but in turn, let me hear something about yourself, or can't you see yourself in this? So coming up for my 50th birthday, I just was reflecting on the fact that 50 years ago, my birth mother had given me up for adoption. My birth father probably was on drugs. He had a heroin conviction. He was in a lot of trouble. And they both kind of surrendered me over to a foster system. And I was, for about 2 months, I didn't have a name or a mother or a father. And I thought about it, and the 50 just made me think of it. It was 50 years ago, boom, this day. And I just said to myself, I need to write something to get this off my chest. I want to let at least my closest friends know on social media that this is what I am like. And you know what, Ty? It was almost like an apology, because I wasn't the easiest person to handle at times in my life. And I made things a little difficult for people who loved me. And it was my way of saying, hey, just so you know, like, this is what I was carrying with me. That doesn't explain it away. It doesn't excuse it, but it certainly gives you an idea of, what was going on. And I just tried to write it from that standpoint. And then I tried to let people know, kind of like 50-year struggle, maybe a 40-year struggle in about 2,500 words. And it was difficult to do, but I was happy to have done it. And I think the craziest thing about it is that I was thinking, I hope people like it. I hope people don't think it's overwrought. And instead, what I got was not just like, hey, attaboy, Robert, that was great. I got like, hey, I want to talk to you. I have an adopted son. And I didn't know, I didn't know that about these people. Hey, I want to talk to you. Like, I'm adopted and I recognize a lot. So that was intoxicating. And that made me feel like, you know what? I'm going to go talk to everyone and get the word out that I am open for business and that I want to make other people feel like someone understands them. In this genre, at least.
Look, three things. If you've been watching the show lately, I've been on these three things: being seen, being valued, and being heard. Okay? And that's with any platform. I don't care who you are. That's across the board, universal. And, to just go back to what we were talking about before, sometimes having that invisible label on us, sometimes you can feel as if you're not seen, valued, or heard, that your feelings don't matter, or, your thoughts and this, that, what have you don't matter. When in actuality, yes, they do. And if anything, not to say they matter more than someone else, but you have just as much as the same right as anybody else to express those feelings and, express those thoughts or what have you. And, I just think sometimes society tries to put the damper over certain things because, in the end, who doesn't want to say, hey, we live in this fabulous utopia of life and, all things are great. Everything's fine. No, everything's not fine. Sometimes there's the dark side of things. There's the, uncanny. It's mysterious. We don't know the origins of how this began or whatever. We do know this exists, but the origin of it, we just don't know. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it may manifest itself in many different ways over life if not dealt with at the time it needs to be dealt with, Right. And I'm just, look, I've dedicated my platform to mental health, man, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this in a second, but, just from a mental health standpoint alone, not to, bring it here or whatever, but, I understand sometimes the pressure of being an African-American male in America. You know what I'm saying? I get it sometimes. Sometimes there are places that I'm scared to even venture to because of the fact that I'm an African-American male. I'm not doing anything, but I know what the outcome could be, if something were to happen. But to take that, and I'm going to bring it over here to this, to being, part of the foster system, being adopted, I can only imagine the mental health aspect of things, because as you said, you've gone through 50 years of your life, and it sounds like you have come to, okay, you know what? I understand this, I understand that. I'm at peace with dealing with this. I'm going to help others deal with that. But there are many out here who haven't come to that type of rationale. And they're still asking questions. Why me? Why this? Why this? Why this? Why that? Why this? Why that? And just from the mental health aspect of that alone, triggers.
It's all of it. Really, if you think about it, it's all of it. Because physically, it has nothing to do with anything. Although, if your birth parents were 7 feet tall, then you probably have a better chance of being in the NBA if you were the kid, right? But outside of that, it's almost all mental. First, I do want to cut back. You said, oh, not to bring it here, but I think I want to bring it there in one sense that I've had this discussion with several of my Black friends before. And one of the ways that we both see each other a lot is that there is this, you kind of get this perception that there's equality when there isn't. So in other words, in the Black experience, we know what that's all about. Hey, Ty's here and I'm here. Why can't we just both work hard and see who wins? That kind of thing, right? But they don't understand that behind all of that, there's different layers that are historical and that exist in the present. And it's the same thing with being adopted. They'll look at me and they'll say, and people have, well, did you get 2 parents? Oh, sure. Yeah, 2 people adopted me. Were they good? They were great. Oh, well, so you have 2 great parents. What's the problem? I have 2 parents and you have 2 parents, Robert. So there's this false equality that doesn't exist because you have to look past the surface. That takes time to explain. And even if you did explain it, a lot of people aren't into nuance and they just want to know what they know and go on. So that's a difficult way to communicate. And with my Black friends, that's how we see each other. We kind of feel like we have something synonymous there. As far as the mental health aspect of it, it's everything. And the worst part about it, the thing that bothered me, Ty, is that it snuck up on me when it hit me hard. It wasn't like I was saying to myself, oh, I was in this relationship and this woman left me. But, oh, I'm adopted and that makes it so much worse. And, oh, I'm devastated because no. It just was like my friends had breakups and I saw how they went through it, even their toughest times, even if they lost a couple pounds, even if they took a couple of days off of work. And then I saw what was happening to me. And I just said to myself, what's going on here? I must be the weakest of the bunch. I found out the information and I found out that this is a thing across the board for adopted people. And I was working up against something. I was working against an opponent I didn't even know I was fighting. I didn't even know I was in a fight. Right? That's the thing.
That's part of knowing the origin of things and, getting that little man, no matter how little you think it is or how big you think it is, but getting that piece of culture, and adding that to yourself is key. It's key. And whenever you get that piece or whatever, I don't know. I don't care if you get it when you're older. I don't care if you get it when you're younger. But when you do get it and you really understand what it is, then that is what in my opinion, makes you whole. And I'm not going to say you're going to be an outstanding citizen going forward, but you sort of understand things and, man, you can, be on the road to trying to fix and overcome and become the best version of yourself as possible.
I think you're right, Ty. I think what it is, you get it to a point where you could say, hey, it's more of my responsibility. I mean, you're always responsible for yourself, but when you stop getting blindsided and you know the opponent and you know it, now it's more of your responsibility. Now hey, I am the kind of guy who has problems with this. I need to be careful. I need to manage my relationships as such, and I need to, prepare myself for certain things. And it took me a long time for that. It was just 13 years ago that I was, I was put into a mental ward against my will. By the state. They examined me and they said, this guy is a danger to himself, possibly to others. And I was put into a mental ward. And I was sitting there with people that I felt like were way worse off than me. That was my opinion. But yet, I was down 20 pounds. I didn't know what was going on. I was hallucinating. I was sick to my stomach. Clearly, they weren't much. I wasn't much better off than them. And that happened like out of nowhere. It blindsided me. And when I got out of there, I said to myself, you have to change your systems or else you're the irresponsible one. Like, you have to change the way you go about things. It's more on you now, because now you know what can happen.
Let's talk about the Giving Arts itself as an organization. Like, tell us all about this.
All right. So, like with a lot of things that I've done over the years, and I mean this humbly, usually whatever organization I'm working with, it's me, right? It's me. It's a party of one. I as not just an adopted kid, but an only adopted child, I'm always kind of working solo. And I feel more comfortable that way. And then I like to collaborate outside of my thing. So I'm never really alone, but I'm kind of, and I have a decent amount of control over like what I do on a given day. And so I don't want to do that anymore. This problem is going to be bigger than me. So I'm going to need a lot of people to help, and I'm going to be looking for the helpers like down the line. But at the moment, the Giving Arts is a place where I interview or write profiles on celebrities, but strictly on the charities that they involve themselves in and that they would like to promote. Then we find different ways to promote them. Most of them are traditional. I'll do an article, I'll put money behind it, which is my contribution to their charity by putting money behind my article, and we'll go out and we'll get 125,000 people to take a look at it, that kind of thing. Other times I'll attend their function and I'll review the function if it's like some kind of gala or something like that. I've done that many times. And then I'll reach them and I'll ask them if they have any creative ways or things that they want to do. And I kind of push them towards it sometimes, because they'll say, well, I have an album that I'm pushing, or I have like a DVD or something that I'm pushing. And they'll say, and I'll say, well, why don't you come on and talk about that thing you do charitably? And then I'll include everything else in there as well. So we'll push your album, but we'll talk about this thing that you do. And they love it. Whenever it's suggested to them, they love it. And I have found, if anybody at home hasn't had the chance to meet many celebrities, but are interested in, music artists and things like that, I can tell you that the greatest thing that I've learned over the last 6 years of doing it is that these people, most of them, genuinely care about things, genuinely want to do better, and go out of their way to do so. And as soon as I learned that, I said, all right, well, the writing is on the wall here. Like, I need to move more into that direction. And also, one other thing I'll say is that it worked for me as well, because you want volunteers, not hostages. And the thing is that when they're having to press an album or something, a lot of times that's a contractual thing that they're doing. Their goal is they have to record it and then push it. And when they're talking to you about their charity or anything along those lines, they're there at their own volition. This is what they're interested in, and they'll talk to you for an hour and a half about it. And that certainly, as a journalist, was invigorating for me. So it was a win-win all the way around.
Now, first and foremost, before I even get into a couple of other questions, let me just ask, now you said 6 years ago, so 2016, basically you made the transition over to become a music journalist. Before then, I know you had some credits as a, production assistant and a producer, Major League Baseball, broadcast for Florida Marlins, what have you, but you've also have had, your hands in a whole bunch of things as well, throughout life. How was the transition for you, because based off some of the things that we talked about before we talked about this, and now you're sitting up here and you're interviewing, celebrities with charities, music artists with charities. Talk about that transition and how did that evolve you as a person from your past to where you are now?
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you know what, Ty, like before we got to the charity and we were I just started and was doing the straight up music work, the straight up, I found, much to my like delight, was that a lot of the things that I spent time wasted on, like reading endless amounts of music magazines when I probably should have been doing my homework and, doing this and then the other, I found that all added up. And that when I started talking to these people, I was able to kind of pull back to things. And what happened is it became a nostalgic exercise for me, and it started to make me healthy, because I would be talking to people who were on my bedroom walls, in posters, and on my lockers in school, and the people that used to be on my radio. And I used to say, oh God, that's like some faraway voice from heaven. This ballad is what I needed to hear right now, because me and my girl are going through problems. All of a sudden, that person is talking to me, either in person or on the phone. And it became like this healthy, nostalgic thing where I wanted to go back and do more and do more and do more, because I am also a high school dropout. So I had a very difficult teenage existence. Mm-hmm. And to go back and talk to the people that were hot when I was a teenager was kind of like going back to kind of freshen up the past a little bit, if that makes sense to you. It was a psychological thing for sure. It was like I was rewriting my relationship with my past. And so to them, it wasn't that heavy. They just saw a journalist across the way from them, and I tried to do the best, most professional job I could do. But also internally, I was feeling that this was a little bit deeper than just asking somebody about their new album.
Well, look, let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, like, some of the people he's worked with, okay, some of the people he's interviewed, like, I'm sorry, we hate to date ourselves, but if you wasn't around, certain parts of the 80s, 90s, right. Like, you have interviewed stars. And I mean, they are icons now. Some of them are even in the, Hall of Fame, of music or what have you. But can you just talk about some of the guests that you've interviewed?
Yeah, if I can remember them. See, I try not to go out of route, because then that shows that I might possibly like one more than the other, and that's not true. What I can tell you is this. So the types of people, Ann and Nancy Wilson of Heart, have both been extremely generous to me and gave me my start, and literally gave me my start because she discovered that I was adopted. That is absolutely true. If it wasn't for my adoption, I don't know if I'd be talking to you right now. I might have given up a little bit further down the road, because it had already been a year. So Ann and Nancy Wilson, a couple of times, both halves of Run DMC. Unfortunately, it's halves at this point, but both halves of Run DMC. Melissa Etheridge, Chad Smith of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Paul Stanley of Kiss. I've worked with Paula Abdul, although I didn't put any written thing together, but Paula Abdul is a very charitable individual and a really, really sweetheart. Belinda Carlisle, the same goes for her. I describe her the same way. Taylor Dane.
Old school right there now.
I think that's enough, but they all are kind of that. They're in that pocket. Like, they're all interest me, because I was 8 years old in 1980. I was 18 years old in 1989 or 1990, and so that was the pocket right there for me.
Yeah.
And Ty, to be more like objective about it, that maybe the reasons they are so charitable is they've come to a part in their life where that type of thing is better. I don't know if I would have wanted to have met Taylor Dane at 22, and I'm not saying anything about her personally. I'm just saying she had it going, and I don't think she wanted to talk about this, that, or the other thing. I'm sure she had other priorities, and I think the same goes for just about everybody that I named. But they're different now, and I'm different now, and I'm glad we're kind of meeting up on these roads,
Hey, first and foremost, let me just say, I think that is great, man. I just think that's one of the dopest things I've ever heard, because, to me, and I value every last interview I ever have, but I can relate to what you're talking about. I feel like for me, what sort of put me over the top with a few people was the fact that I had interviewed Vinny from Naughty by Nature. you know. And when I did that interview, you know, that's when everybody, it's this, it's that, it's that. But as you said, I remember watching TV, you know, The Box, for those who can remember The Box. That's,
yeah, of course, The Box.
Yeah, you know, I mean, hey, you know, just let it be known, Robert and I are not boomers, okay? All right. We're just seasoned in life. We're not boomers, all right?
That's true.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
No, hey, you can't see gray hair on me, man. You can't see gray hair. maybe here. But
Right. Hey.
Yeah.
But no, so I totally get it, you know, and, you know, when you're interviewing people that used to be on your wall and now they're at this certain point in their life, you're at a certain point in your life, and you can use some of the things, you know, that you grew up going through or whatever to, you know, make a deeper connection than just, hey, you know, sit up here and tell me about your album. Sit up here and tell me about this. But no, you actually have a, you know, purpose. You actually have a cause going on here. Let's talk about that and how you can use, you know, certain things in your life to relate to, you know, these charities that they may have. Man, I think, come on, dude. Once you make those connections, it's a much deeper level than that. Then, to me, you walk away. Hey, yes, I know this person has this type of stature or whatever, but I see them in a totally different, positive light, you know, than I normally would, you know, if I was just a fan of their music.
I agree with that. And you know what happens is they start to transform too, because you don't really quite get to know them as friends. I don't know if I have any friends in the business, but I have acquaintances, right, that would say, oh, it's you. But having said that, more importantly, like I look at them not as what they used to be to me, but rather what they're doing now. You know, like Daryl McDaniels, right? I love Run DMC, and Daryl McDaniels is not even anywhere near a rapper to me anymore, because what he has is an adopted person himself, and he has quite the adopted story. Is that he created something called the Felix Organization, and he did it with another adoptee named Sheila Jaffe, who is an Emmy Award-winning casting director. She cast The Sopranos and Entourage, and won awards for them. And so, they're tight. The two of them found each other. They're both adopted, and they both said, we have to do something about this. Could you imagine, like in the prime of their life, this was years ago, they said, we have to do something about this, and they went ahead and made the Felix Organization, which helps foster children. I think mostly in New York City. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, although I think actually they made one out in Los Angeles now as well. And the work that they do for these kids is unbelievable. And that's how I see Daryl now. It feels like he does that full time. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he forgot how to rap, because this is all he seems to be doing when I look, like almost on an everyday basis. And so that's neat to look at them as something different. I like Belinda Carlisle. I was in love with Belinda Carlisle. She was such a sex symbol for me as a teenager. And now I look at her as somebody who, for no other reason but from the bottom of her heart, built an animal hospital in Thailand where she lived with her husband. And that's what what I think of when I think of her, you know. And if I was to see her tomorrow, that's what I would want to talk about first. So I think that's neat.
Not only neat, but you know, that says let me just say this. That speaks volumes to who you are as a person. And let me, seriously, because the fact that you get to bring this up out of them, you know, the fact that you get to use your own experiences, you know, like, hey, there's something that we all have in common. You were adopted. Oh, you were adopted. Hey, I was adopted too. Man, I grew up XYZ. How did you? Oh, well, man, yeah, you know, I know this, da-da-da-da-da. I know this as well. And, you know, when you have those real deep connections, you know, like, man, like below the surface connections, as I like to say, you know, like it just makes, I'll say this, and, you know, certain publicists or whatever, don't be mad at me, but I can relate to a lot of what you're saying, you know, in aspects of the guests that I've had on my show. Mm-hmm. It's more about the connection I have with the guests more so than a publicist. And and you know, that's not to take away from the publicist or what have you, But the publicists, they're there to do their job. They've already did their job. But if I can make a connection with you, and on a much different, on a much deeper level than I will probably have any other day, then I walk away like, you know what, man, Robert said some things to me the other day, man, or I saw Robert on this podcast or this show, or I read an article, he was talking about this or what have you. And when I see you again, if I talk to you again, I will bring that up and we will talk about that. And that just makes the bond even like deeper, because I'm showing you a side of me that, yes, I'll sit up here and I'm a host. Yes, I'm hosting this platform, but I pride myself on really getting to know the people that I'm talking to. Not really making it an interview, but more so a conversation. And a conversation between friends that would probably be sitting back wherever, you know what I'm saying? Whether we fishing, whether we, sitting on the stoop, wherever we are, just really having a conversation about life and what it is that we have going on. So when you connect to those that you looked up to on that level, man, deeper.
Listen, Ty, that's why I'm here. If anybody came here to watch me, and I wouldn't know if that would be the case, but if anybody ever did, right. I'm telling you right now, go back and watch the other stuff that Ty did. The reason I'm here is because of conversations like this. It's not somebody looking at a note card and going, so, Mr. Ferraro. I've had that. And, this is much, much different. We're trying to get somewhere, and we got our hearts open as we're talking.
Yeah.
And it shows, yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I like to ask this question from time to time, and I think this is a perfect time to ask this question.
Okay.
I have something that I call leaving empty. When life is over, when life is done, leaving empty. Well, you're leaving empty regardless of if you know it or not. But in terms of not having regrets, not having the shoulda, coulda, wouldas of life or what have you. But when you leave empty, man, you got put it all out there. Man, I've done everything I needed to do. I've paved the way for whoever I need to pave the way for. But when something tells me, but when you leave empty, what do you want your legacy on life to be?
Well, I'll be honest and say that I used to always think I would have one. One of the things about being an adopted child is you have fantasies a lot. That's something, again, I had them all the time, read in the book. Oh, people have them all the time who are adopted. And I always have had them. As an only child, I was also a dreamer. You're not sitting there getting beat up by your brother or talking to your sister. You're just alone. So I've always thought that there was one. For me, the difference has been I'm now pretty convinced that I won't have one and that I'm fine with that. And that now the game is, all right, so it's not about where can I get and what can I do. Now the game is just do good. Just do good from now to the end. Be more of make my life more of a streaming than a downloading. The downloading is heavy, right? The downloading is like, where am I going to be? What's going to happen? How will people talk about me when I'm gone? And the streaming is just like, it's Tuesday. Let's do something good. And let's compound that as we go. That's where I'm at. And I don't suggest that for everybody. The way my life went and the amount of dreaming that I did, it feels good to feel that way. That works for me.
Hey, you know what? That is very introspective.
Yeah.
Let me just say that because, you know what it is, with you. Like, hey, you know what? Today's Tuesday. And as you said, downloading and streaming. Two totally different things. Downloading is going to take a little bit longer,
Yeah.
It's going to take up more space, or what have you. And, man, it's going to be kind of hard to get rid of from time to time, depending on what you're downloading. Streaming, hey, I'm streaming this, it's on to the next, you know what I'm saying? It's on to the next episode. And as you say, hey, today's Tuesday. You know what? Tomorrow's going to be Wednesday. Make it a better day.
I do want to say, though, because I don't want to duck this and have people think that I don't have regrets. Now, listen, I've done a lot in my life. I've hurt. plenty of people. I have been unthoughtful. I have been selfish, especially in romantic ventures. I have hurt the people closest to me with all the pathos that I have, and I'm not going to blame that on anybody. I had plenty of time to get that right, and I didn't until now. I'm married now. I've been with my wife for 11 years. We're in a great relationship, but as time went on, I hurt a lot of people. So, but the nice part is that I've made amends, I think, to almost every single one, the best that I could. It was sincere, and I feel like, that's something I might want to leave behind now and move forward and take any type of guilt I might have or anything like that, and let's make that into a positive, and let's just try to do more good and continue to wash out the bad.
Love it, man. I love it, dude. Like, I mean, that's very transparent of you. You know what I'm saying? To like, come to that, realization and to be so forthcoming with it. Like, yeah, no. And I mean, that's real, like, I've done bad. Let's not act like I was this saint or whatever. No, like, that's real. And I think sometimes, I was actually having this conversation the other day. Like, I think sometimes in life, society, we want to lead society, being this, they were such a good person and they were this and they were that, but you totally disregard all of the other things that they've done because you try to focus so much on this. But let's look at the overall scale of things. Let's talk about the good and bad, because there were bad things, and not everybody gets to go out, love, or, adored or what have you. Some people will be, man, the opposite of all that, like, oh, no. All the positive that you're saying, yeah, just flip that to the other side. Whatever is negative or that positive, that's how I think, or that's what I think. But as you said, as long as you've gone back to make the amends for that and you were sincere in that, you can't, it's not your job to make a person, determine, I'm going to feel this way now. I'm going to feel that way. Because you've done what it is that you've done. You've made amends for that. You've apologized for that. However a person feels after that, that's no longer on Robert. That's on that person, Yeah. I know I get to, me being Robert, I get to go on about my way and blaze trails, in other aspects of my life. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, sure.
Hey, man. Woo. Okay. All right. So now look, if people, man, want to hear, like your interviews, if they want to see some of your interviews, if people want to know a lot more about the giving arts or what have you, how can people get in contact with you?
Okay, so all of my stuff is written. Most of the stuff that I do that's more audio, video, is wound up being like for other people. Like I'll jump in and do something and they've got the content and that kind of thing. For me, all of my content is written. It's probably where my talents lie. You can see them at thegivingarts.com. And when you do, there's two columns. One of them is features and the others are interviews. The features tend to almost be exclusively about charity. The interviews are a little bit about everything. A little bit of charity. Some of them are all straight up music, straight up, shop talk, that kind of thing, and that deal. But there's going to be a lot more added when I can. I have like things in the can that I just haven't had time to do anything with because transcribing is like insane and editing and transcribing. I don't think people really understand. A matter of fact, Daryl McDaniels, to go back to him because he's a character. I asked him one question. I swear to God, and I like to talk. I asked a question, and he answered the question without stopping for 16 minutes and 43 seconds. That's on one question, and he wasn't being rude. He wasn't being like. He just was doing it, he was, and in between there, he's rapping how he's feeling and all this stuff. And he's just a character. But when I got the transcript back, it was less funny because I got to edit that down. we talked for probably about over 2 hours. And there was a lot to unpack there. And then I had to decide what's important and what's not. It became a whole thing. And so I have some of those still like in the can that I'll get to. And I've got some other things that I'm looking to get to myself. But we'll see. I think the main thing is with the Giving Arts is that I'm going to start to use it more of a social media type thing as well. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a piece of content that will be there forever. It could just say, hey, I'm here with her or him. This is what they're doing. Come on out, whatever. And and it'll be on my timeline, but it won't be on the website. I've been doing more and more of that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me ask like pretty much as I led off, you are a advocate for, foster and adopted children. Like, how can you use that platform to give them more of a voice?
I think it's going to become pretty transparent, because what's going to happen is I'm going to wind up doing a lot of stuff at the Giving Arts that's about both adoption and foster children, and almost to the exclusion of some other things. And I don't want to do that, but I'm only one person. And that's why eventually I think I'm going to hire a writer or two so that they can concentrate on the other things, and I can go over in that lane and do what's really do what my heart's. I'm not ready for a full rebrand and say, oh, this is adoption now. It's hard to do. You know about branding. You've done a great job of it.
Well,
and I it's difficult, but I feel like I'm going to do that. But more than anything, I need to speak to people. I'd like to speak to people, and a lot at once. And to be honest with you, I'd like to do it a lot with inner city kids. And it's hard to get entree to that. You just don't walk into a school. I used to live in Harlem. I couldn't just walk up to 125th and be like, hey, I want to help people. People, come out here. I'm here to help you. Anybody adopted around here? No. You have to go, especially because it's the education system you're usually using to get where you want to go and to gain access to these kids. It's a touchy thing. So I'm trying to learn about how I can find an audience, that I can help, and especially in the inner city. Now, Daryl's organization, that's what they do. They seem to primarily deal with inner city kids. And so I'm hoping that I could glean from them how I might be able to go about that. I'm in the process of trying to do that now.
Well, first and foremost, let me say, man, good luck to you on that. And something tells me that once you do make that connection, because once you do make that connection on that level, it may start off with one school, but that school may refer you to another school that's going to refer you to another school that's going to refer you to another school. And then you'll look up 6 months like, oh, wow, like, okay, now, man, I have a whole network of schools now, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do I decide which one I'm going to go to first or what have you? Like, I may not be able to get them all on this trip.
What I agree with you, and I just want to say is that I've thought about this, right? And that is kind of how I want to build it. And then I look at my age, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, so you go into inner city kids, right? And you talk to them. First of all, not only are you this bald white guy, but you're 50, right? You're 50. So I'm an old head. I'm an old head at best, right? I mean, I'm probably worse than that. And then all of a sudden, if I don't hurry, like, I'll be 60. And now you're really talking about, what are you doing now? Talking to, kids that are in there. So I feel a sense of urgency for real to get going, so that I can maybe put in a good decade or so working with people at that age, to the point where they'll still want to even remotely listen to anything that I have to say. So that's like the fire under my butt, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm going to say this, and I hear what you're saying, because, in this day and age, we're not going to say ageism or what have you, but, when it comes to the younger generation, like I said, we are not boomers, ladies and gentlemen, okay?
No.
Don't get it twisted. No shape, form, or fashion. Right? We're just seasoned, okay? We just know a lot. But honestly, I feel with your story and your message and what it is that you're bringing, like, seriously, once you start talking and giving examples of everything, all these other little layers start to come down. Now we don't see you as, okay, 50 and da-da-da-da-da. No, that's Mr. Ferraro. Man, he went through the same stuff I'm going through, and we here talking about it, and, I can understand. The same way you sat up here and talked to some of these, talk to some of these celebs, about things that they have going on, their charities or what have you, the things that really, truly interest them. Yeah. The same way that it can happen for the youth. Trust me, I've seen it, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You, sir, have a real story. You know what I'm saying? Like, your life is real. Like, you have real life events. You can talk about your real life events. Your real life events, can't be that any much different than someone else who's going through the same situation. So you, sir, can, well, no, not can. You are a resource to, someone younger out here who may not, understand which way to go. And it's not to say that you're a therapist or whatever. No. I've been there, so I can give you, my journey, man, you don't have to take my advice, but I can give you my journey.
And you know what, how I said I made mistakes, and sometimes they help me going forward. And that would be the biggest case, because the great equalizer is when you're out in the burbs or whatever, and you're an adopted person, and then you get adopted by a very loving family, and okay, you have some problems. Okay, I mean, that's a real story, right? But that's not a story that relates to everybody. I mean, that's a story that's a little bit homogenized. That's kind of like a straight shot thing. Certainly not if I want to talk to people like city kids. Certainly not would they say, oh, that makes a... But I went and made so many elaborate, beautiful, gigantic mistakes to the highest level, and all form, that all of a sudden I kind of brought myself to a level where I was like, all right, maybe doing all those stupid things and maybe paying the prices that I paid for them is currency now. And maybe it's a little currency that I could cash in at the door and say, hey, I really want to try to connect with these people. And you know what? I think I could a little bit because of this, because of that, and whatever. And so that's my hope. We'll see. Gonna need a lot of help, but we'll see.
Well, yes. And look, just to take it back to transcribing and editing and all that. Yeah, hey, look, I tell a lot of you all the time, oh, well, I can do this, I can do that. You probably could. I'm not going to say that you can't. But if you really knew all the nuances that went on to creating your own platform, putting your own platform out, editing, making sure this clip is being seen for however many seconds or what have you, putting links up, sending links out, just the whole gamut of it all. Yeah. A lot of you all who say, oh, I can do that. Yeah.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. No.
And it gets
to the point time where you're like, oh, you could do this other article. And I'm like, I'm not ready. No, I'm not ready right now. I've actually passed on people because I just was like, I just finished that thing and I'm not ready for this thing. It's too much.
I'm burnt out. I'm one person.
Yeah, I became a magazine writer where magazine writers take on a couple things a year, right? Like maybe 6, 7, 8 projects a year. I became the same way. I was just like, you know what? I just can't have too much. And the other thing I will confess right now, I hope anybody watching doesn't tell anybody, but like I have interviewed people before, and I do the professional thing and I say, hey, you know what? I've had you for an hour already. You've been more than generous. You want to get going? And they'll oftentimes say no. And then I'll have to invent something so that I can go without being rude. Because all I'm thinking after a certain point, is I have to transcribe that word. I have to edit that word, and then I have to put it into the bigger picture. Right? And when that happens, all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God. So you get like, fading residuals as time goes on. It's difficult.
So look, man, I've come to my last question, and this is the question that my show is known for, and I would love to get your response. Mr. Robert Ferraro.
Yes, sir.
What is the one word that best describes you and why?
All right. Could I just say one thing? Can I set it up with one short thing?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I don't know if you've ever seen. Is it NCIS? Yeah, with Mark Harmon on it.
Yes.
Right. And
Yeah.
so then they had Abby on the show, Paulie Perrette.
Mm-hmm.
Paulie is cool. We're acquaintances, and she is an extremely charitable individual to the point where it's ridiculous. Like, and she's multi-directional. She's retired now, and she'll sit on her couch and she'll see something that somebody's in need, and then she'll go help them. Financially or otherwise. She'll make it her problem. So it's like, I guess it's what we always have wanted to do. She has the money to do it. Is that you go, boy, I'd love to help that person. And she says that, and then she takes it a step further and helps that person. And so I said, I need to know her. And I got to her mutual friend, and I said, I'd like to speak to her. And she reached me back, and she said, listen, if we're going to talk about charity and stuff, I just want to warn you, it's going to be a long time because it's my favorite subject. So these are the types of people that I'm interested in meeting. So she asked me, we were talking for a long time one night, and then she asked me about me, which surprised me, right? I was taken aback, and I don't know, she's a very accomplished actress. She's, fairly famous, pretty famous. And I said to myself, well, and I started downplaying everything I had done. And she actually got irritated, and she said, listen to me, don't do that. She said, it's annoying. She said, you obviously are someone, or you wouldn't be on the phone right now with me. We're sitting here talking about something. You got here somehow. So don't downplay stuff because you think you're being nice when you're doing that, but it's really condescending. It's like, you tell me proudly what you've done. And I told her. And after that, I've never been the same. So I want to preface this because I'm going to say to you that if there's any word that I am, it is resilient. And that is because I've had to go up and down so many times emotionally with things that were taking place in my life. Many of them, which were the downs were my fault in many, many cases, but you still have to suffer through them. Just because you fell on the ice because you can't skate doesn't mean it doesn't hurt when you hit. Like it's a thing, right? So at the end of the day, I got to tell you, resiliency is the thing. I really feel like I will certainly die from something. Maybe a piano will fall on my head, or maybe it'll be a little bit less romantic than or worse than that. But I will say this: I feel like you can't kill me, metaphorically, And if you start to feel that way, and you're this age, then you could do good things because you don't worry about the governor on the engine. There is no governor on the engine. You just do. You have nothing to lose, and that's the way that I feel. So resilient.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Word with Ty Brownlow. I, of course, have been your host, Ty Brownlow. Remember, no one is worthless. No story is worthless. Follow me on all social media platforms at Word with Ty Brownlow, or you can go to my website, tybrownlow.com. Get this wonderful conversation with Robert Ferraro, plus other great conversations as well. We out, y'all. Peace.